Hey everyone, we're officially back. Thanks for bearing with us while we were down for a few weeks. This week is a brand new episode in which we talk about John's trip to 3 different countries and the birds that he saw there, including his visit to Australia and to New Zealand. We had a lot to catch up on, and got an update from Shannon on some amazing progress with her Cochlear Implant as well, and also shared some of the birds that Amanda and I saw during spring migration here in Chicago. As always, married ornithologists John Bates and Shannon Hackett are your hosts, along with myself, RJ, and my wife, Amanda, 2 newer birders who are learning as we go. Thanks for joining us. Okay, let's go grab our binoculars and let's get into it. Okay, yeah, I just started recording, so we can just get into it. Wherever we want to start. I think there's a lot to cover. We haven't seen you guys in
that's true,
almost
Long
2
time.
months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I know, John, you've been in 4 different countries, 2 different continents,
three different countries.
3 different.
Yeah,
Crazy.
just 3, but they were Peru, Australia, and New Zealand. So it was pretty dramatic. And I keep saying to folks that in Peru, we spent a week scouting for a project that we're doing with the mammal division here at the Field Museum. And it's redoing an elevational transect that was first done in 2000, so 26 years ago. And we're going to start redoing it for birds and mammals to kind of see what changes have happened over that period of time, if any. And it's one of the most magnificent set of tropical forests I've ever been in my life. And you go basically from 3,000 meters down to 500 on this one.
Wow.
So it's absolutely insane, above tree line down to the Amazon basin. And it was beautiful. And they're along this area now. It used to be just a single lane road where they would only allow vehicles going up one day and down 2 days later or whatever. So and people are saying, well, it's much better now. And it is, it's 2 lane. But it's still on the side of a mountain face and in constant danger of getting washed out. And then you get to lowlands, and you're driving across the lowlands to get to the sites that we were trying to visit. And you start realizing that the road basically crosses something like 10 different large rivers to small rivers, in my opinion. And
oh gosh,
those washed out, and you have to get across, and they're rocky river bottoms, and so it was a amazing adventure. But we got everything done. The number of lodges along these roads now that cater to both tourists and researchers is really impressive, and so a bunch of them have hummingbird feeders, and I think I topped off at something like 31 species of hummingbirds.
Oh my gosh.
Whoa.
And,
oh my gosh.
And it's because you could sit there at these feeders, and there are probably 50 or more hummingbirds coming in. And
I think about that's 10% of the world's hummingbirds that you saw. Well, almost 10%.
Amazing.
That's
it's
incredible.
amazing.
a really neat part of the world. So I came back to the U.S., and 36 hours later, I got on a plane with Louise Bott, who's been on the podcast, and her dissertation work is on European goldfinches, and those have been introduced to Australia and New Zealand. And so we made arrangements to visit 3 museums in Australia, and visited 1 museum in New Zealand. And then Louise gave a talk at the New Zealand Ornithological Conference. And that was great because she gave a talk about European goldfinches, sat down, and the gentleman next to her said, I found a dead European goldfinch on my woodpile yesterday.
Oh, no way.
Oh wow.
And he brought it in the next day, and
my gosh.
we prepped it, and she's going to get DNA data, and we have a specimen of it.
Wow.
Oh wow.
So
That's
anyway,
amazing.
but coming back to Australia and New Zealand, I'm estimating that I think I had 23 new families that I'd never seen before. Families
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Just
Amazing.
Cool.
everything you're looking at is fascinating.
Wow.
So cool.
Yeah, you sent us some pictures and everything along the way. It was fun to I don't know, follow along.
Yeah.
What were you most excited about seeing that you hadn't seen before? Or I mean, it was all new to you, right? You
I
hadn't
mean,
been to.
so much of it that was
Yeah.
I think that was what was so impressive is, there are some introduced birds like starlings and house sparrows and they've got European birds like song thrush and European blackbird, but everything else is like you get up in the morning in Stanley and the first bird you see is rainbow lorikeet, which becomes a bird that you actually stop looking at because it's so ubiquitous
In
across
Stanley?
Oh, wow.
You mean in Sydney?
I keep saying I've been doing this. I'm glad you caught that.
I'm like,
I don't know why I say Stanley, but Sydney. It's Sydney, the largest city in
Wait,
Find
Stanley's
My
in the
told me you
Falklands?
Yeah,
were in
Stanley's in the
Is that
Australia.
why? Okay.
Find My did not tell me you were in the
Yeah.
southern part of South America.
But then there are these like these other birds like pied currawong, which is it behaves a little like a crow, but is in a completely different family. And they're hanging around in the cities, and there are they call them, the Australians call them bin birds, but there's a species of ibis, Australasian ibis, that lives is adapted to the urban landscapes, and so hangs around trash bins in downtown Sydney. And it's just, again, it's just so different in terms of what you're seeing, and it's easy to get around. It's that every town has botanic gardens, which are just beautiful places, and they also happen to be wonderful places to see birds. So they often have a pond, and there's a ton of neat water birds that you can pick out, a bunch of different ducks that are, some of which are really odd. There's this thing called musk duck, which is we should do a podcast on just because it looks so weird. Anyways, it just goes on and kookaburras, so members of the, go ahead.
Do you when you're there, like, see anything that you can't ID or that was like hard? Like, I mean, going someplace new, I feel like you're so used to probably being able to ID everything and in your daily life, going somewhere new. Okay.
Absolutely. And Louise is really smart about pulling out her iPhone and checking things and stuff. So yeah, I'm more of a traditionalist and had studied the bird book, and I was definitely more lost sometimes than she was. She would figure stuff out quicker. I was by myself one day, and I keep thinking that my favorite bird from the trip at some level, in a weird way, in an owl-sided flycatcher way, was that I was out in this open grassland with eucalyptus, and it was really fun because I got there and immediately saw a couple species of birds together on the ground. So it looked like there was kind of a mixed species gathering of things. And so I'm looking at all these things, and they include a little Estrilded finch that's spotted and got some red on it. It's a really neat thing. There's a honey eater on the ground. There's this thing called shrike thrush, which is a really bizarre robin-sized thing. And then this bird pops up, and I'm like, I don't know what it is. And it's a tiny little thing, and it's got kind of a white face and then kind of a tan body. And I look at it for a little bit, and it flushes off, and I can see a little bit of white on the tail. And all I could think of was, well, it must be one of these little Estrilded finches. And so I go to the bird book and flip through. No Estrilded finches look anything like it. And I'm thinking, did I just see something that I'm imagining? And flip through the book a little more, and suddenly I'm in the thornbills, which is this family Acanthizidae. So family I've never seen before. And there's a bird called southern whiteface, which is this tiny little bird with a white face, tan body, and like white on the tips of the tail. And I hadn't studied it in the book, in part because I would go through and try to focus on birds I thought would be along the coast of Eastern Australia, which is where we were going to be spending our time. And it's not that southern whiteface doesn't come near, but it doesn't come all the way to the coast. So it's much more distributed in drier central parts of Australia. But clearly I was in perfect habitat for it in Canberra, the capital, which is inland. And so it was just really fun because I figured out what it was, and it was like, oh, that's what it was.
That's fun.
That's awesome.
No, but nothing sounds the same. So So, and that's an interesting thing because Merlin has gotten very good in like around where we are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most of North America. In Australia, Merlin still doesn't have enough recordings to do a good job with an awful lot of even common stuff sometimes.
Oh, interesting.
So
Does Australia have its own version of Merlin, or
they don't, and so I think
Well, they have
there's been
packets,
some,
right? There are modules for
yes,
that part of the
yeah,
world.
yeah. But actually, Mike Webster, who's an ornithologist that was just retired as head of the Macaulay Library at Cornell, which is the primary data source for Merlin, has actually spent his career working on fairy wrens in Australia. And so I was talking to him right as he was retiring, and he said one of the first things he was going to do was go to spend some time in Australia trying to egg on people to get more recordings.
That's
Oh, cool.
cool. Very cool.
So I submitted a few recordings
That's
Cool.
awesome. That's awesome.
of things I knew what they were, but
Yeah.
Yeah. And then was New Zealand the last stop on the trip?
yeah.
Did you end in New
So from
Zealand?
there we
Okay.
went to New Zealand, and New Zealand's like 2 time zones away from Australia. So it's not a small. I mean, there are 2 main islands, North Island and South Island, and it's a very different place. So Australia obviously has a lot of farms and a lot of deforestation, but they also it's a huge continent, and they driving from Canberra down to Melbourne, we must have passed through at least 10 national parks.
Wow.
So
Oh,
along
wow.
the road, you're just driving through groves and groves of beautiful eucalyptus forest
Oh
and
my gosh.
stuff. You get to New Zealand, and it's not that there aren't places like that in parts of New Zealand, but it's been a lot more. It's seen a lot more deforestation and habitat conversion into agriculture and stuff. And so Australia, I mean, New Zealand has all these, it's not a huge diversity of birds, but a lot of really cool endemic things like kiwis, and then these parrots called kias and a bunch of other stuff. But a lot of those birds are not doing well on the main islands, and they're not because they have to cope with introduced mammals from that include rats, but also include stoats, which are European weasel type animals, and then cats. And that was really driven home when we went out to a place called Tiri Tiri Island it's in the ocean straight north of Auckland, the largest city in New Zealand. And I think 30, 40 years ago, it was an island that it had been deforested to a large extent, but it didn't have rats and it didn't have cats and it didn't have stoats. And so uh, they decided to make it into a refuge, basically, and they've allowed it to reforest. And what they've done over time is moved a lot of these populations of birds that were once widely distributed on the mainland onto this island to give them a chance away from predators, and it's
Oh, cool.
unbelievable. So you get to this tiny little island, and it's got 10 different species that you'd have a hard time. That a lot of them are still extant in a few small pockets on the mainland, but here in this island, they're just flourishing. It's unbelievable. So we saw a kiwi,
awesome.
and there are these birds in the family Mahoidae, called whiteheads, that are little like titmouse-like things with white heads. There were kokakos, which are a completely endemic New Zealand, part of a completely endemic New Zealand family that are about the size of a small crow and with this blue face. And, they're, I don't know. Anyways, it was absolutely magical to be out there on this island and see these huge numbers of birds. And
then were you kind of limited by where you could go? Like, were you trying to look for European goldfinches, or could you kind of
well, we
go?
were working with this longtime colleague of ours who's a parasitologist from New Zealand. Her name's Rosemary Barraclough, and she had a family farm where she knew there were goldfinches, and so we spent quite a while there trying to catch some. And European goldfinches, man, they're hard to catch. but they were really common here. And actually, here's an interesting difference between Australia and New Zealand. We actually, even though there are introduced European goldfinches in Australia, Louise was getting data from the museums for that part of the trip, but we were certainly interested in trying to see them when we were driving around, and we never saw a European goldfinch there.
Oh my gosh.
We actually, I'm running with the hypothesis that Shannon sort of figured out. There's a native honey eater in Australia called noisy miner. And at least in the urban areas, noisy miner has adapted really well, kind of like starlings here, except that they live in these family groups, and these family groups are incredibly aggressive towards other birds. I think they've driven any small bird like European goldfinch off into the countryside in order to avoid being harassed by them. They're just unbelievably territorial towards any other bird.
Yeah, you should look up videos of noisy miners. They are just brutally aggressive.
We can talk about, there's a
oh my God.
video about what they're like.
So cool.
Online.
They're native to Australia?
It's a completely native bird.
Okay.
The title of that video, When Good Birds Go Bad.
Something like that. Did I? Yeah.
Anyways.
When you told me about it, I looked him up and I found that video and I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah. So New Zealand is
I can find it.
Somewhat depauperate in terms of species diversity, but it has all these birds that have been evolving there for millions and millions of years that are really distinct. And they do all kinds of different things, but they also, because of what's gone on, they require a tremendous amount of conservation effort. And so the Department of Conservation and researchers in New Zealand spend an awful lot of time doing things like running trap lines to try to control the number of stoats in the areas that are targeted for some of the endangered species that live in these areas. And so that was really dramatic, and we got to learn about a lot of that when we went to the New Zealand ornithological meetings. But it's also a beautiful country. You go inland, there are mountains with snow on them this time of year, and
it looked like Colorado almost. Some of the pictures you sent, like it was.
We were driving, and I was just like going, I could be absolutely heading towards the Rockies right now.
So cool.
I liked you sent the picture and Shannon was like, "Who's driving?"
Probably could, yeah. Well, they got nervous with me driving because I kept pulling off on the side of the road.
John, it's funny. We just 2 nights ago, Amanda and I were at our Lake Cook Audubon. They did like a potluck dinner thing, and for the first time, they had you could submit pictures, and they had a projector, and you could talk about pictures you took. And Amanda and I were the only people I think that had like local pictures, and everyone else was on these big trips all over the world. So my picture was like a great blue heron, and then the next person was
good for you guys
in Africa or something. Yeah.
Representing.
But somebody in the group spent a bunch of time in New Zealand and actually had a bunch of pictures of like New Zealand, and he talked just about like how significant the conservation efforts are in New Zealand, and didn't really like elaborate on it, but he was like, yeah, they just do so much there, and it's like so cool to see. So I was just curious if while you were there, I mean, you mentioned a little bit, but was it pretty significant compared to other places you've been?
Yeah, so the forest, the original forest is really limited in a lot of areas. On South Island, there's an area they call the Fiordlands, and it's got large stretches of native forest still. We got kind of into the edge of that in this area around a place called Wanaka, which is where the meetings were, which is right in the center of South Island and kind of at the base of those mountains that we were talking about that look like the Rockies. And that forest is absolutely beautiful. And you're in it and you're looking for these birds like Pipi Pipi the Maori names are a lot of poetic and just really fascinating. But you're seeing these little birds that are from an endemic family, and you look over and there's a trap. Start realizing that it's there because without it, there probably wouldn't be these native New Zealand birds that you're.
Oh,
Oh, wow. Interesting.
It's definitely that's a dramatic thing. But again, they've been using these offshore islands as refuges, and that's worked amazingly well.
mm-hmm.
Cool.
Why don't you tell people
John,
what a
do they
stoat
view
is,
the?
John?
It's
Oh yeah.
it's a European mustelid, which means it's a weasel-like thing.
Do they view the European goldfinch as invasive, like something they're trying to trap, or?
I'm so glad you asked that question. It was so funny watching Louise after the talk because people would come up and just go, "I love European goldfinches." And here are these, you've been just listening to all these talks where they're these invasive mammals that they're just doing everything they can to trap or poison. And yeah, European goldfinches kind of fly under the radar. So the only the only seed-eating bird in native to New Zealand is a species of parrot. And so there was a wide open niche for European goldfinches when they got there, I think. And I mean,
okay.
obviously there are an awful lot of European plants that they can feed on too. But yeah, no, it's people like European goldfinches.
Okay, good. That's awesome.
Do you think they're doing better in New Zealand than Australia, or was it just that in Australia they were just further away or harder to?
I'm going to guess the answer to that is that they're doing much better in New Zealand, because I think that there's plenty of landscape for them and vegetation, and the number of competitors or the number of so I think one of the reasons why they do so well population-wise in Australia, despite the number of predators, is that they nest high in trees. And so a lot of the native New Zealand birds nest pretty low to the ground. And so that's just devastating if you've got stoats and cats around.
Oh, okay.
But that said, we had trouble catching them. They're hard to catch. And Rosemary had contacted a couple of rehab centers, and we ended up getting 9 birds out of the rehab centers that Rosemary contacted. And I have to say that was kind of a unfortunate tribute to cats, because at least 5 had written on the label "attacked by cat." And so, it's just
cats.
true everywhere.
People, keep your cats inside, please. Your cats are invasive.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Well, you missed we realized you were gone for like all of spring migration, John. Was it hard to be away from Chicago? Well, I mean, you got to see plenty, but is it hard to? It was a fun time of year to be in Chicago at the same time.
For sure. I mean, I know it's matter of fact, since I've been back, I haven't really done any birding other than in the yard. And yeah, I mean, I love spring in Chicago, and now we're transitioned into the breeding season, and I love the breeding season, but it's taken a while. It's like jet lag. It's taken a while to kind of get reacquainted with everything.
And Shannon, how did you do with John being gone for so long? You went up to British Columbia for a little bit, right?
I did. I spent a week in British Columbia with my family, and that was nice. It's so beautiful there. Although if you look at pictures of it, everybody else is dressed like summer, and I have, an undershirt, a t-shirt, a sweater, and then a down vest on top. So that's what I looked like. But it was still so nice. Like, again, speaking of botanic gardens and stuff like that, there are places like that all over Vancouver. It's just really
Do you see
nice.
Anna's hummingbird?
Yes. And the Montreal Canadiens won their series, so that was exciting. Only to be taken out by the eventual Stanley Cup champion. My brother is not a Montreal Canadiens fan, so as jokes, his family has given him Montreal Canadiens gear, which I wore. So, and it worked until they ran into the Carolina Hurricanes. Then it didn't work so well, but yeah.
How about you guys?
It was nice. It went by faster than I thought it might.
Good. good.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you guys have a spring?
It was great.
Really good.
It was funny. It started out slow, it felt like. I
Mhm.
remember we were like a couple weeks into when we thought we were going to be seeing a lot more, and we were like, maybe we just haven't
Missed it.
maybe we missed it, or
Yeah.
and then it was like a span of like 2 or 3 weekends in a row. We just had like some of the best weekends we'd had, so it was really exciting.
Yeah.
And we've definitely gotten better at IDing stuff, which has been fun.
Mhm.
Like certain warblers, like which we definitely like needed to go with a group like last year, could like go ID on our own this time, which was fun.
Yes.
So, and like also just realizing like places close to us have things too, like
Mhm.
there's a forest preserve like right by our house that, we're only the only people that bird there and saw like a ton of like really cool birds there. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. I feel like there was, just piggybacking on what RJ said, I felt like we kind of missed it. And then I get up at 5:45 for work, and when I would wake up, it was like maybe 3 consecutive days. When I would wake up, I would hear all these birds, and I turned on Merlin and stepped out the front door, and there was just a ton of birds being picked up on Merlin, like way more than usual. And those afternoons we both worked, during the day, but in the afternoon we went to that forest preserve that RJ was talking about. It's called Turnbull Woods, and also the Mary McDonald Woods that are right next to the Botanic Garden. And we saw an amazing array of warblers, and then I felt really good, like, oh, we didn't miss it. But it was all like thanks to Merlin, because I think if we hadn't seen everything that was in our neighborhood at 5:45 a.m., we wouldn't have gone out in the afternoon. And we thought maybe in the afternoon it won't be so good, but we had a lot of success. It was awesome. Go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, I think one of the amazing things about Chicago in spring migration is that all those forest preserves can actually keep those warblers from moving on. And so you can have a whole day where you can go out and see it.
Yes. Yeah, I feel we really saw that this year more than ever. It was amazing. And RJ, do you want to tell them about Montrose?
Well, yeah, so we went down to Montrose with our birding group and just had like so Amanda and I have never really birded at Montrose before. And so this was our first time really diving in and doing it. And it was so crazy, but we saw so many things. It was unreal, but it totally is like, it felt like you're shoulder to shoulder with all these people with cameras, and you're having to like, weave your way through. I mean, it was probably the busiest time of year, I'm sure, to be there also. But but I mean, we had probably like, I don't know what, Amanda, 6 different like lifers for us, like just on that trip alone. I mean, it
totally lived
awesome.
up to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you see the piping plovers?
We did.
Yeah. We
awesome.
saw the piping plovers. We saw a black-billed cuckoo. We saw a yellow-bellied flycatcher there. Let me see. We saw blue-headed vireo. So those were all lifers for us there. I'm trying to think.
And the morning warbler.
Morning warbler too. Yeah.
I mean,
so it was awesome.
It's just an incredible place, and it's not that you can't see those other places, but just by nature of like that canopy being as low as it is, you've got a reasonable chance of not only seeing them, but seeing them fairly close.
Yes.
Yeah, it was like you almost didn't even need binoculars for like we had was it a bay-breasted, I think, that like literally we could have reached out and touched it.
Yes.
And it just kind of like jumped around in this branch that was close enough. And like a prothonotary too, which we've seen, up by us plenty of times, but it was just like, I mean, when we see it up by us, it's so far away, and you're just looking for this little, yellow, when we were at Montrose, it was like on a tree that we could touch.
Yes.
It's so crazy how like there's just so much there, and it's so dense, and while also so many people too. Like we walked away like exhausted. We were like, I need a break from all that. It's like, I don't know, we totally enjoy going into the woods, and it's like a peaceful thing, and you see everything. So this was like a totally different experience, and it was great though. It was like, I don't think that's the way we always want to bird, but it's definitely like at the time was like, that was a lot of fun.
Yes.
So yeah.
Totally lived up to the hype for sure.
I mean, I don't think you can have a bad day there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I believe
it. Yeah.
So now I'm quite attached to the hummingbirds, the male and female hummingbirds that are coming to our feeder with camera on it.
Oh.
So very nice.
Yeah.
You sent some pictures of them. They were super cute.
Yeah, you're so lucky. That's so awesome.
And you had red-headed woodpecker at the feeder too.
I did at the hummingbird feeder, making the
That's
hole a little bigger.
It
was really something. I also went to, now I have to plug a concert. So I went to see David Byrne's concert in Milwaukee in the beginning of May, right after John had left. And I have never, ever experienced a concert. I used to be fun, and I used to go to a lot of live music before I got old, half deaf, and not nearly as much fun. And I have never, ever seen a concert like that. It was like a whole body experience. The music was great. His new music is really great. His remixes of Talking Head stuff are fantastic. The people he has on stage with him were incredible. And the way the stage is like a living entity, from the all through 360 around him, the floors, it was really, really, really amazing. So if he's anywhere near you, you should go see it. And I hope he makes a concert movie from it and that you can go see it in an IMAX. That's one of the only things I've seen where I thought, yeah, an IMAX is really going to make that better. So, that's the first concert I've been to since I lost my hearing. And I didn't think I would ever do that again because the sound is so freaking painful. But in that case, the settings on the cochlear implant it didn't drill into my brain the way, without it would have. And even our son Pete, who, that's not his music necessarily, but he was blown away too by just the whole spectacle of it. The messages he has in his music and on the screens are very powerful and definitely worth going to, for sure. Oh.
That's great.
That's awesome.
So glad it was a success. That's awesome.
Yeah. So happy for you, Shannon.
Yeah.
And that's super cool. And I'm super jealous too.
I know.
We've watched the Stop Making Sense DVD before, and it's like, David Byrne's just incredible. And you're so lucky that you got to go see him.
Yeah. I went with the person who basically introduced me. The first time I ever saw that video was at her house right when I moved to graduate school. She's the one who got the tickets and spent the weekend with me going to that. So it was like revisiting from a long time ago. And it was really nice. It was nice to spend time with her and to think of, music is a tough go when you don't hear it the way you used to. I imagine other people feel this too, that music it's not just a song, it's a memory of people and places and events. And when I lost my hearing, it broke my connection to music because music doesn't sound right. It didn't sound the same. You don't realize how important both hearing things on both sides of your head are when it comes to music. And so it broke all those memories for me. And so, as I try to train this implant, I think bird songs might be a hopeless endeavor. I can't understand a single bird song yet through this whole thing. But music is starting to sound a lot more normal. So it wasn't so much of a broken experience to go and see that concert. And again, I'll tell people, if you have hearing loss, go. If you have hearing loss, people, go and get it treated, please.
Shannon, I was going to say, I know it might sound like or feel like slow progress, but I feel like the last time we talked to you, you were having a lot of trouble with music in general. So it's like to hear that you're, could go experience a concert now is like totally sounds like progress from our perspective.
Yeah.
So that's really exciting. So maybe in a few months,
I turn it into science now.
Not as intimidating.
Because I do this with almost everything, but I'm tracking what I hear and how it changes in music. So some parts of music that this implant doesn't even pick up at all because it's tuned for human speech. It's not tuned for a lot of the range of music. And so, but you can train it. I have I can identify songs now. When this thing was first turned on, even songs I knew my whole life I could play in it and I didn't know what they were. But now that's not the case anymore. So that you have these things called mappings where they, try to tweak it's so bizarre to think of. There's, 23 little electrodes along this array that's curled up into my cochlea, and each part of the cochlea is kind of tuned for a different tone, a different sound. And so they're trying to replicate what hundreds of thousands of hair cells would do with these 23 dots. But they can manipulate kind of the loudness and the exact frequency at these electrodes can be manipulated, and it completely changes what you hear, which is super bizarre. So I had a mapping right before I went to British Columbia because there were some sounds that I had trouble telling apart, like big and bed, for example. Those words were the G's and the D's were really hard. And so they tweaked some of it so that those things came into much clarity with those now. I don't have problems with that, but that seemed to have broken a couple of other sounds, like M's and N's now sound the same. And when you scientifically look at where those sounds come from, the frequencies they encompass, you realize why fixing a D and a G can break an M and an N. So, there's just these slight changes to the frequency responses on these electrodes. And so I'm going to go back and then we'll see what happens to music. Once they kind of tweak it a little bit again. But music, I was able to turn music into a science. And if I can turn something into a science, it's not nearly as painful. I cannot turn music into a science when I cannot hear out of that ear. There's no amount of music that could make it even hopeful. Now music seems hopeful to me again. So,
it's great.
Yeah. And now I've gotten obsessed with Bruno Mars and his new song, which is totally weird, but totally me too, because, there's parts of his music, that song in particular, there's a cute little guitar riff that's in several times in that song. And through my implant alone, I do not hear the guitar riff, which when you think about it is super weird, right? There's actually parts of sound that I do not hear through that. I don't hear at all. But if I listen to it through my headphones, so I have the implant and then I have the headphones on top to where it's not just going straight into their sound actually in my ear going through the natural channels, whatever's left of them. And I do hear that guitar riff through my headphones. So what that means is that that tiny bit of residual hearing is actually contributing to the richness of music. And I think that's why music isn't quite as painful or annoying, doesn't make me despondent anymore, is that there are aspects of music that I can now hear, and more that I could hear with more kind of practice and training. Not afraid of hard work of training. It's just, but I have to turn these things into science. Otherwise you feel sorry for yourself, and that's no good.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Jeez.
Yeah.
That's great.
All right. Well, we
So
have
John,
a
would you go
mailbag
back?
question too.
Well, I would definitely
Would you
go.
go
I would go back. There's plenty of things to see. What's in the mailbag?
Well, this mailbag's complicated.
I know. I don't know. We might need more. Shannon, you said we might need more time. Maybe we can come back to a longer answer.
It's a really, really, really interesting question. But anyways, so let's do it in 10 minutes.
And I feel bad. This is from Anne sent this a few, like a month ago or something. And we're just getting to it now. So this is from Anne Jaworski. Anne said, I love listening to your podcast, especially as a Chicagoan who likes to hear tidbits about birds in my city. I have a question that occurred to me as I was at the Jarvis Bird Sanctuary on the lakefront last week, watching the golden-crowned and ruby-crowned kinglets. I assume that those two kinds of kinglets are more closely related to each other than to other birds, but one of the species, ruby-crowned, is clearly sexually dimorphic, while the other, golden-crowned, is, as far as I can tell, not dimorphic. I know that some birds really have no clear dimorphism, and some have a lot, often depending on the roles played by each parent in the brooding young. But I guess I always thought that it was more or less standard across a group of birds, a genus, I guess, whether or not they are dimorphic. How common is it for two bird species to be each other's closest relatives and to look pretty similar to each other, but for one species to be dimorphic and one not to be? Amanda, you want to take this one?
I know. It's an awesome question. Jeez.
So let's take it.
It is.
So at the risk of so they are each other. It's ruby crown kinglet and golden crown kinglet.
No, they're not each other's closest. Nope.
They're not.
Really?
But they're
Nope.
they're in
They're
this.
not. They're not even in the same genus anymore.
Yeah, but they're in the same family still, right? So, but the one thing I want to point out is they're
Sure.
both sexually dimorphic. So,
Oh,
yeah,
they are?
Oh,
I
they
think it's
are?
even more interesting
Oh.
because male ruby crown kinglets have this red crown spot, but they can conceal it, and so sometimes you don't see it, even though the males have it. They can spread their feathers.
Okay.
Now, the thing about golden crown kinglets is the males actually have an orange center part of the crown, whereas the females is gold. So you can actually identify them, and we get a lot as coming in as salvage in the window kills, and so you can see that really clearly.
All of the kinglets have sexual dimorphism to some degree or another. So it's just a matter of once you know what to look for. I'm sure that Anne, the next time she goes and looks at them, if you look closely at their crowns, during the breeding season, you'll be able to tell. You'll be able to tell a male from a female if they are letting you see the tops of their heads, which ruby crown kinglets aren't so good at sometimes.
But coming,
but it.
I was going to say, coming back really quickly,
the closest living relative. Yeah, I mean, Goldcrest is the closest living relative of golden crown kinglet,
which is
so there's
European.
So there's 4 other species in that genus, in Regulus that that are more closely related to golden crown than they are to ruby crown kinglet.
Oh, that's
and that
so
degree
weird to me.
If you saw them, you would recognize how similar
they look
are.
Very similar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're adorable little tiny fluff balls of birds, though,
Okay.
with varying
cool.
degrees of orange or yellow in the crown, varying kind of distinctiveness of stripes and presence of white and, characteristics like that.
But you want to try to tackle the second part?
So I do. The second part of this question I find really, 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 really fascinating. Because at some level, Anne has hit on something that's actually correct, that birds that are more closely related to each other would tend to have similar kinds of plumage dimorphism, but not always. And whether or not birds are dimorphic and the cause of that is something I'm really, really fascinated by. A lot of that research has focused on males and their displays. And in the context of sexual selection. But that's not the only kind of thing to look at, because dimorphism can take a lot of different forms. It can be size dimorphism, which is fairly common too. Usually males bigger than females, but not always. Hawks, things like owls, noticeably different. Sometimes both sets of both of the sexes are bright. And sometimes they're not. And sometimes the female's the brighter one than the male, although that's not the most common way. But you can look at dimorphism differently, too. Like, what kinds of colors are varying? Are they structural colors? Are they pigmented colors like carotenoids? And what does that mean? Are patterns different? So, brightness is often beauty is in the eye of the beholder thing. And so we don't see a lot of the bright patches that birds have either. If they're displaying ultraviolet coloration, well, there's patterns and colors we don't see. And then there was this really interesting paper by Ian Owens. John, do you know of this thing from 1998?
No.
Where they looked at plumage dimorphism, and it turns out that often plumage dimorphism is correlated with extra pair fertilizations, and the colors that is from structural colors, not carotenoids in that sense. And so that's one of the things that they found in their study, is that structural colors, blues, having variation in blues, signified not sexual selection in that sense, but females going outside of the pair bond to to mate. And I found that really, I never really thought about it like that, and I found that really interesting. There's also another really interesting study by a woman who looked at galliforms and ducks, so galloenseri it's called, to look at the distribution of sexual plumage dimorphism, and that I found really interesting too.
So
that's a really great question, and it made me learn bunch of new things. So thank you.
I will
Yeah, it's a great question.
share with you guys photos of paradise shell duck, males and females, and let you try to guess which one you think is the male and which one is the female. These were really common across New Zealand, and they're beautiful ducks, but the plumage patterns are absolutely fascinating with respect to this question about dimorphism.
Very cool. Very cool.
So yeah, I mean, it's not always as simple as just like toning down a male to get a female, which is kind of how it's often looked at. The females are the demure ones that are trying to hide and raise babies, and those are a little bit on the side of misogynistic tropes that pervade science. These things actually need study for real to understand what the colors are doing and what the differences do. And we don't know that much yet about how the genes turn into those colors to make that female look like that. We don't know much about that yet. So, and I find that a really interesting thing to do too, to look at too.
Great question.
Nice question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thanks, Anne.
Yeah, thank you.
And thanks and sorry it took a while to get back to you, Anne.
Yeah.
We've been busy. John was in 3 other countries, and we've all been working. And but thank you for writing in.
Some folks had real things to do.
All right.
Now, before we close out, I want to thank our our listeners for being so kind. We've had some people behind the scenes of the museum now, and it's just been very nice. People have been very nice. Awesome. So thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks, everyone. Hey, everyone. Thanks to everyone for listening and for spreading the word. We continue to get new listeners every week, and it's because of you helping spread the word, so we just want to give a big shout out and thank you to all of you for helping us out. Next week, we'll be back with a brand new episode, so thanks, everyone. We love you all. Have a great rest of your week.